Okay, let's get going. Let's get things underway. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the Coast To Kosci 23. Welcome to this first webinar of 3, which we'll be hosting. And it's really to familiarise yourself with Coast To Kosci 23. Huge congrats on getting thus far. But if I could start this webinar just acknowledging this brilliant country in which we all reside. And I especially want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we're located this evening, and give a big mention to the lands on which we run the Coast To Kosci race, those of the Yuin and the Ngarigo people. And then I'll pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and they celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands, to the mountains, and to the waters of Australia. As I said, a couple of house rules: just jump to mute if you could, please, and then post any questions, comments, compliments, any abuse. Just post them in the chat and we'll catch them at the end. So without further ado, me and Greg are just going to alternate here and give you the lowdown of the event. So this race schedule is up on the actual website. Just quickly going through it. We've got 3 webinars, as I said. And then on the Wednesday before the actual race itself, we've got a pre-race safety briefing. That's going to be done via Zoom as well. On the Thursday before the race day, we've got check-in. So that's going to happen between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock at the Seahorse Inn in Twofold Bay. That's where you're going to get your race gear. That's going to include your bibs, your tracker, your support vehicle stickers, and then there's a couple of signs that you need for your support crew as well. And then we'll get race registration the next morning. That kicks in at 10 to 5. That's down on the beach. At 10 past 5, we'll get the Welcome to Country. That's done by our resident Uncle BJ Cruz and Nathan Ligon, his nephew. And then on that morning at 5:30, the race starts. At just before midnight on that same Friday, we've got our first cut-off. That's at checkpoint 4, 106 kilometres. That's at Gunning Rack Road, the intersection of Gunning Rack Road and Snowy River Way. And then on the Saturday morning at 6:30, we've got our second cut-off. That's 25 hours. That's just beyond Dalgety Memorial Hall at Dalgety Bridge. Then we've got our third cut-off at the Jindabyne Caravan Park. That's 32.5 hours into the race. At 41.5 hours into the race, we've got our fourth cut-off point. That's at Charlotte Pass. And then obviously we've got, not obviously, but we've got the race finish at 3:30 on the Sunday morning, 46 hours after race start. On the Sunday after that, in that morning, we've got the post-race breakfast. That's been held at a place called the Adventist Alpine Village in Jindabyne. So you take Barry Road up towards Dalgety, and it's just off to your right, just past the Jindabyne Sport and Rec place. We had it there last year and it was really good. And then at 9 o'clock, we've got the rest presentation. That's at the same place, Adventist Alpine Village. And we ask you to return your trackers and your runner ahead and following signs. Greg, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. And good to see everybody. And for those of you who are past Kosciuszko participants, you'll notice 1 or 2 slight changes from the past on the prior slide, and we'll work through those shortly. A brief history, and actually the weather is a little bit like that down this way at the moment. I'm sort of down that way. That's exactly what it's looking like. But I'm sure it'll be dry and good at race time. So an interesting milestone for us with Coast To Kosci this year. It's the 15th formal edition of the race, but it's actually the 18th overall edition of the race. There were originally 3 fat ass events. The original race route developed by Paul Avery with Diane Weaver and some others over some drinks at the Orange Hotel, working out where was the best route. Interestingly, the route loosely mirrors the Bundian Way, or Bundian Way, which is actually a traditional Aboriginal trading route. Funny enough, starting at Twofold Bay, where the race starts, and also going to the top of Kosciuszko. So 3 fat ass events, and then 15 official Coast to Kosci events. There was obviously an interlude from 2018 and 19 when the race was cancelled at the last minute in 2018, and then went into hiatus until myself and Mickey picked it up, or were passed the baton, I suppose is the right phrase, as custodians of this event. This is how we really feel about this event, as custodians of it. For those of you new to Coast to Kosci, we really hope you'll enjoy some wonderful landscape, some places that you probably would not have gone to. I certainly would never have gone to some of these places and on some of these roads. And some of it is just sheer beauty in that Dalgety sky at night, although you're cursing and swearing at that stage, is wonderful. You really feel you could reach down those stars. So the race record remains intact and hasn't been touched for quite a while, and will take something very special to get to Andrew Tuckey's race record. And again, we're really looking forward to continuing the tradition of Coast to Kosci. Myself and Mickey want to stay very true to the original spirit of it and that real family feel to it. Yes, it is a small event that brings its own natural challenges and constraints with being a small event, but it also makes it a very special event. And we really hope those of you who are new to Coast to Kosci have a very good experience this year. And myself and Mickey are here to support that experience. So if you have queries and you have things, please do reach out to us. So that's the history. This is our 15th official race and the 18th of Coast to Kosci, and we're looking forward to an exciting 2023 race. Thanks, Mickey.
Here's Greg. I think that may be Andy Hayden.
I think it's Andy Hayden. It was either, there's a slight resemblance to Rob Mason at times, but I'm pretty sure it's Andy Hayden. But I didn't want to give Andy a big head.
So when we look at the actual breakdown of all the runners for our 2023 event, we can see all our states and territories are represented aside from South Australia and Northern Territory. New South Wales grabbing the lion's share. And then we've got one foreigner, one very welcome foreigner. He's a Kiwi. And if he's listening in just now, you know, you're most welcome, although it might be a wee bit late in the day for our Kiwi friends. So that's the breakdown. The actual male to female, ladies to men ratio is a little bit lopsided. We've got 3 2/3 men to every single lady. But our rookie to veterans ratio is a little bit better. It's good to see so many new faces that are going to be toeing the line. By the way, I think it's important to recognise that none of these kind of factors influence our selection of the runners. Our selection is based on Greg and myself's perception of your ability to finish, and that's primarily informed by your qualifiers. So these statistics, these basically just come out in the wash, and they don't, as I say, bear any resemblance or bear any influence over what the actual maybe select our runners. Age groups is quite broad. Both our youngest and our eldest runners are actually females. Our youngest is 24. Our eldest is 63. You can see 12 people actually fall in the main category of between 50 and 54. That's nearly approaching old buggers, but that's what it is. And then the number of previous finishes is quite interesting. We'll get 24 veterans. Of that 24, 12 have actually completed it once. 3 have completed it twice, 3 have completed it 3 times, 4 have completed it twice. Pam Mustin has completed it 8 times. Trevor Allen has completed it 9 times. Hopefully going for his 10th. He'll be joining Coast To Kosci royalty. Already in Coast To Kosci royalty, we've got 11th. We've got Jan Herman, and 12th, standing out there on his own, is Kevin Brick Heaton, with 12 finishes thus far. So that's the breakdown for 2023. Greg?
Okay, thanks, Mickey. It's interesting to actually see how the field does actually change and evolve from year to year. I know last year we had a younger skew. We had a lot of younger runners and probably an even mix. And this year we've got probably slightly more newbies than in past years, but probably more back to the standard sort of age profile. Core principles for us is safety, and safety. That's not just your safety as runners, that's also the safety of your crews. And bear in mind, you take responsibility for the safety of your crews. And also the safety of all other road users, the safety of locals and the areas through which we run and go. So please, we encourage you to be safe at all times and make smart decisions. And you're all generally well aware of that, as a number of you are good trail runners. You need to make smart decisions for yourselves and smart decisions for your crews to ensure you mitigate against risk. But safety all times.
Thanks, Greg. There's a few noteworthy items with respect to Coast To Kosci 23, so I'll just run through them quickly. There's a 99% probability, so very high. Did I hear a yes there? We're going to be using Cowbell Trail again, because Big Jack Mountain Road is still in various states of disrepair. And according to the residents around there, it doesn't seem to be moving too fast. So I think we'll get confirmation pretty shortly that we'll be using Cowbell Trail again. There's scaffolding works at the summit of Mount Kosciuszko. They're making it disability friendly, or giving it like the accessibility it's long been required. So come December, there's likely still to be some scaffolding works. When we actually have like the race briefing on the Wednesday before, we'll give you like the up-to-date picture around that. We've introduced a new earlier cut-off time at checkpoint 4. We want to just try and make sure that we get like everybody, on track to hit a good actual finish time. But come try and make it in that 46 hours. So that's why we've introduced this new earlier cut-off time. It's going to happen at checkpoint 4, where Gunning Rack Road intersects Snowy River Way. And then what we've done as well this year, this is a first for us, taking advantage of technologies, we're going to introduce trackers. So we got feedback that there was significant room for improvement in the way we communicate the race on race day or race days. And what we hope with the trackers, I mean, there's a couple of knock-on effects in terms of runner safety and stuff like that, but we want to kind of like give our armchair fans the best experience around the race. So we're looking at these trackers to provide that information. It's up to the support crew and the runner to make sure that the ongoing operation of them is good, it's functioning, it's operational. If not, you need to get in contact with us straight away, and you need to kind of note down, significant points of interest, for instance, if the thing goes a wall, because this is going to affect your results at the end of the day. And if it's not working, or if you've turned it off, we're going to get a little bit suspicious. And as I said, we're going to use that for the race results. And we want to make sure that, you know, like they're actually going to be used properly and they're going to like serve us well and serve you well. And then at the very end, we're going to ask for a timely and safe return. So a few other races have done this before. We're trialing it out for the first time. They're 3G trackers, and we expect them to go really well. And it'll be especially good for our armchair fans. There's always been a little bit of a question mark around the use of high-vis vests for our runners. So I just want to really clarify this. So for both runners and pacers, it's compulsory to wear them from checkpoint 4 onwards to the finish. And then for support crew, you need to wear them at all times. Hopefully that's clear. So this is well before nighttime for the majority of runners, or approaching nighttime, should I say. But for runners and pacers, after checkpoint 4, it's compulsory to wear your actual high-vis vest, and then support crew at all times. And this is another aspect that's caused us a little bit of grief along the way. We want to make sure that at the 82-kilometre mark, where we cross the Monaro Highway, you actually stay on the right-hand side of the road, you cross the bridge, you look out for the race officials, and then, and only then, do you cross the Monaro Highway. If we see kind of incidents or examples of that kind of like not happening, we're going to be a wee bit displeased, and you might cop a couple of time penalties. So we want to be absolutely like sure that everybody's going to be safe, and that's the best way to do it. Because you get some bloody big trucks hurtling down that road, and it can be pretty dicey. So I want to just make sure that everybody's aware of that. Also make everybody aware there's no lavatories at Boytown Beach, so please do your business before or after. This one, I must admit, when I kind of did Coast To Kosci, or when I was crewing for Greg doing Coast To Kosci, I was probably in penalty of the mandatory gear. But it's really important. There's no sharing of mandatory gear. Everybody needs to have their own, and that's going to be thoroughly checked by us. If you're missing stuff, you won't get up the mountain. Simple as that. So you really need to have that mandatory gear absolutely certain and easily accessible, so that we can check it really quickly. And then and only then will we allow you to actually like hit the actual path to the summit. I must admit I've ran afoul of this a few times as well, but we're under strict instructions from National Parks and Wildlife Services that you cannot, absolutely no one stands atop the cairn on the summit of Mount Kosciuszko. It's actually been damaged by lightning, so there's a couple of bits failing off it, so it's a little bit unsafe as well. But, you know, National Parks, Wildlife Services, they're kind of coming down on us heavily, so no standing on the cairn, please. Similar with like parking at Charlotte Pass, if people could just watch where they park, make sure it's considerate, make sure it's legal. And then just lastly, because everybody's been on their feet for like 46 hours at the most, it's really important you think about getting down the mountain safely. So make sure that you've given thought and consideration to who's going to be the designated driver to get you back down from Charlotte Pass to Stundabine after your runner does her finish. Make sure that person gets a little bit of sleep, or, you know, let they're fresh, or as fresh as can be, to get you safely back down the mountain. So those are the things that are probably we wanted to make call outs, or things that have actually been introduced or changed since like the last year. We'll obviously circulate this presentation so you can really familiarise yourself with them, but I thought we'd just flag them at this moment in time. Greg.
Thanks, Mickey. Just reiterating that, I think pretty well every time I come down the mountain late at night, there's been a near incident with wildlife, and one of our officials last year took the front end off his four-wheel drive with a large beast going going across the road. So it does happen, can happen. Thanks, Mickey. What we've done is just to sort of, I suppose, break it up a little into and try to reallocate more clearly some of the rules under runners, pacers, and support crew, just to make it a little bit easier. So runners, this is all relatively straightforward and the things you'd expect. Each runner must have a dedicated support crew and vehicle. That vehicle obviously has to be registered. We strongly recommend, more or less mandate, very close to mandate, strongly recommend four-wheel drive. At all times, the runner must run on the right-hand side of the road facing the oncoming traffic. The exception to that is running up Balloca Hill, where you run on the left-hand side of the road and watch out behind you, and is quite narrow. When you go up Cowbale Trail as well, there's no vehicle traffic on there, so you can go which side you want, but it's not exactly wide, and I'm sure you'll be grunting as you go up pretty steep anyway. Your race number must be worn and be visible at all times. That also applies to the sticker that'll be on your race vehicle to ensure ease of identification. Your rear flashing light must be worn and be visible at all times. When you're on the beach and you register it at 4:50 to 5 a.m. on the following morning, we will actually, the officials there, while checking off your name that you're there, will also make sure you've got your flashing light and it's turned on and good to go. It's very important for traffic coming up behind you, particularly at night while they might see your vest. We want to see that red flashing light. And again, a number of these things are safety, basic safety considerations, as well as part of our approvals from the authorities. Race tracker must be worn at all times, as Mickey outlined. That's non-negotiable. Your high vis reflective vest for runners after checkpoint 4, which is the T intersection of Gunning Road and Snowy River Way. Again, most of you, pretty well everyone's hitting that just on the cusp of night, at dusk, late afternoon, dusk, or at night. And that stretch of road late at night is frequented by people coming back from Dalgety Pub. You want to have your high vis vest on when people are not expecting to see runners out on the road. Your headlamp has to be worn at night. And of course, your mandatory gear is required from Charlotte Pass to Kosciuszko and return. It will be thoroughly checked by race officials at Charlotte Pass. The runner can be allowed to go up as long as the support crew have all his or her materials. If there is something missing, you have to go up and chase your runner and bring them back, and no one really wants to do that. People will tell us, yeah, it's in my backpack. We don't care. We need to see it. They'll tell us they've got it. Yep, okay, fine. We need to see it. And a number of you are aware there have been a couple of very severe weather events during the race in past years, and it's extremely important you have that mandatory gear given the potential for very prompt weather change as you go atop Mount Kosciuszko. You can have a kip in a stationary support vehicle, or sit down and rest those weary legs. That needs to be stationary, cannot travel forward. You're not to depart off the race route, but you are permitted to stay in a stationary support vehicle. That needs to be in a safe place, not in farmers' driveways, not blocking traffic, not on a blind corner. And we do have instances where we hear from here that I'm just helping my runner, I'll move in a minute. No, we need you to not be there, parked there in the first place, or not have that vehicle parked there in the first place. You can deviate from the race route if you really have to. That's assumed to be something quite severe, but you have to resume running from the point of departure. So we expect you to mark that point or know very clearly where that point is. And once you're out, you retire or withdraw. Unfortunately, you're not allowed to rejoin the race. Pretty much standard. And we recommend and really strongly suggest you don't run in large groups. Occasionally you get 2 or 3 of you together, and even at the early stretch of Toowoomba, you may have a group of you. Please do seek to spread out. Running 3 or 4 abreast across a road is we don't want that by any means. And although there's no traffic out there, the traffic's not expecting to see 4 people running along a road facing them either when it does come hurtling along a road that they're not used to seeing people on. So again, try to avoid in groups. It's about your safety.
Cool, thanks, Greg. Cut-off times. So they're geared towards a 46-hour race finish. Both Greg and myself don't think they're too aggressive. They're nothing like the 6-foot track. You know, you're not going to have Jane Trumper like banging on your backside to like, you know, get you moving. And they're nothing like Spartathlon or something like that, which are really aggressive, I think. So there's basically 4 you need to worry about. Checkpoint 4 is the first one, and that's 18 hours after the race. Then you get Dalgety Bridge, just beyond checkpoint 5, which is at Dalgety Memorial Hall. So that's 25 hours after. Jindabyne Caravan Park, you're 185 kilometres down the track by then, so 32 and a half hours is reasonable. And then Charlotte Pass, 222, 41 and a half hours. So that gives you 4.5 hours to get up the mountain and get back down to a finish in 46 hours. So those are the cut-offs. We'll withdraw you from the race should those cut-off times not be made. But as I said, like, they're not particularly aggressive. And as both Greg and myself want, that no appeals can be made.
Some
Greg.
points for places. Okay. Paces are permitted after 8:30 p.m. on the Friday night. That's 15 hours after the race start. That's most runners are normally either approaching at or past the Gunning Lake Road T-junction, and it's effectively dusk, all right, at that time. The exception to that is Cowvale Trail, where we do want a pacer to go with you. They can also stomp very loudly in case of those slithering sticks that I know we had a few of those early on at the base of Cowvale Trail last year. But again, it's a safety measure. There's no vehicle access to Cowvale Trail. So therefore, we do want somebody with you, and it's a requirement that a pacer must go with you up Cowvale Trail. Bear in mind, the pacer is allowed to mule for you at all times too. That's fairly straightforward. 1 pacer per runner only. The exception to that is once you leave Charlotte Pass, you're welcome to have your crew go with you, or those of your crew who want to go with you. And that becomes, you know, in some ways, if you're going really, really well and it's good and it's daylight and everything's working for you, it almost becomes a celebratory lap. If it's not, you may need those people to really encourage your backside to get up the summit and back down. Just a question there, I think I saw from Darren about Cowvale Trail. Without the distances in front of me, it's around 55K. I remember. All pacers have to abide by the same rules as runners. That means about what side of the road they're on. That means about what equipment they carry and have with them as well. No physical assistance. There's no towing, no pushing, no helping drag someone the last 50 meters up to the summit. I've seen that once in the past. That's not on. So there's no physical assistance. The clarification around that is, yes, you can mule. You could argue that's physical assistance because you're carrying some weight for them, but that's not a problem. You can mule for them. The rear flashing light must be worn and be at all times as well.
Thank you.
So you need to have the same kit that a runner has.
Thank you. See ya. Have a good night.
All good. Adrian, they can carry the beers if you're doing that. That's whatever your fluid intake is. That's your business. The high vis reflective vest again must be worn after checkpoint 4 from Gunning Lake Road and Snowy River Way onwards to the finish. When they are as a standard support crew member, they do have to have that vest on during the day as well. And that's predominantly around because they duck backwards and forward across the road quite a lot. It's just a common sense piece. And of course, your headlamp must be worn at night. Sometimes if it's a beautiful moonlit night out at Dalgety, it's wonderful, but you got to have it on. Again, the scenario you need to keep thinking of is people leaving Dalgety pub, driving on that road on a bitumen road at fairly high speed. They're not expecting to see runners out there. So they're just driving the way they would normally drive. Thanks, Mickey.
So support crew, just a couple of slides on support crew. We need the actual crew chief of the support crew to call in when their runner passes a checkpoint. So what we mean by that, we're setting up what's called a WhatsApp group, and we ask the crew chief to denote the runner's full name, their race number, their checkpoint location, and the time of passing through. Those are our 8 checkpoints. The 9th one is essentially like the finish. Runners, as we kind of said before, they're only to be supported by one support vehicle at any one time. High-vis reflective vests, you need to be wearing them all the time. Now, this is all pertinent to support crew, yeah? So for each support vehicle, no more than 40k along the race route. You need to be very wary of runners, especially when you drop your runner to Cowbale Trail, because you're coming back along the roads and you're going to be like passing by lots of runners. So we encourage you to keep it really low speed during those points. But 40k's is a max across the entirety of the race route. You need to travel with your hazard lights on at all times. Use common sense. Don't stop or park under trees, in front of driveways. Don't park on Toowoomba Road. Don't park on the ascent of Beloka Hill. And speaking of Toowoomba Road, the support crew, you cannot meet up with your runner until the 24k mark. So that's checkpoint 1. There's a rendezvous point there, the intersection of Toowoomba Road and Perico Road, and that's where you can meet up with your runner. And then after that rendezvous point, what we encourage support crew to do is you travel in a leapfrog manner. So say every 4, 5, 6k's, you just, you move ahead of your runner, you wait for them to come through, see if they're okay, attend to their needs, and then once they've kind of moved past you, you look at packing up and moving on to the next 4, 5, 6k. So just adopt that leapfrog approach, and everything should be good. No vehicles up Cowbale Trail, as we said. Instead, you need to take a U-turn, and then you head to Cathcart via New Buildings Road and Mount Dara Road. It's roughly like a 74k trip, I think it is. I might be talking. No, I think it is that. We'll get confirmation of that, but that's like roughly what it is. But you're never going to beat your runner up there, regardless of what the pace they're running at. So, take it easy, obey all the rules, the road rules, you should be good. And then the other thing with Cowbale Trail is you need to, once you've come round New Buildings Road and Mount Dara Road, you need to stay at Cathcart General Store. Don't head down Coolingubra Road to the top of Cowbale Trail. We'll penalise you if you do. That happened last year. So we want to make sure that you stay at Cathcart General Store and you don't go down that road. It's just too dicey. And we want to kind of protect our runners, as we said. Also mentioned that, about the tracker. Make sure that's the responsibility of everybody. So primarily the support crew, make sure it's operational at all times. When you're going to hand off foods, drinks, even encouragement, you have to cross the road to your runner to do so. Don't do it from the right-hand side of the road. Again, just common sense. Do not, it's not the Tour de France or anything like that. Don't be providing any assistance from a moving vehicle. You're allowed to carry your runner's mandatory gear up Charlotte Pass to Mount Kosciuszko and return. We said that already. And then just lastly, for support crew, if your runner requires medical assistance, or if your runner retires from the race, you need to notify the race medics or the race officials. Do that via the actual WhatsApp group. If your runner retires from the race, just note the time and the approximate distance as to which they retire from the race. And then it'd be good if you actually just travel to the next checkpoint, check in, and then we know everybody's safe.
Okay, race officials, and just on the medical side as well. Hospitals along the route know we're coming through, and they're advised of that in advance. So if yourself or if you're a crew member, you present your runner at a hospital, they'll normally know. They'll be not so much waiting for you, but when you present, they're aware of what you've been doing, will be able to provide assistance. Now, race officials. Your lovely, helpful, warm, and engaging race officials do wonderful things such as wave at you, smile at you, encourage you, tell you to hurry up. Some of them have been known to have bacon and egg rolls ready for you at the roundabout at Kosciuszko. However, the race officials are there to make sure the race proceeds safely. And we have had a few instances where sort of officials have been not necessarily as well respected as they should be, and any of the race officials can recommend penalties to myself and Mickey to be applied. So please, they do a good job. They make it a fun and safe event. Please help them as well by doing the right thing. And if you're directed to do something, please undertake it. Our road crossings. Our road crossings start, first of all, pretty well at the start line, where you cross the Princess Highway. All of these will be marked with cones and with officials. So if you're crossing a road somewhere and there's not cones, you shouldn't be crossing there. Right? The next crossing will be where the Brandy Creek Fire Trail, so the last piece of track, the Brandy Creek Fire Trail joins Toowoomba Road. You literally pop out on the road. As you get to that junction and you see the cone, please take care, because it literally does pop you straight out onto the road. 24.4K, the junction of Toowoomba Road and Perico Road, you'll know where that's there. You'll be able to smell the breakfast. Cooking for you and your support crews. And we encourage, again, for those new to the race, we encourage you to bring cash and to buy heartily from the Toowoomba School Barbecue. I know I've got a great selection of cow mugs here. It is their biggest fundraiser of the year. They're a school of 60 kids, all right? And this is their biggest fundraiser of the year, and it's also out of town money. So we really encourage you to buy up big. We will promote and let you know what the breakfast available is for you. The next junction is at 37K, where Toowoomba Road and Perico Street joins Big Jack Mountain Road. It's not hard to miss. The sign says Big Jack Mountain Road. At 56.1K, where Cowbale Trail commences. So that's the answer, Darren. You're after before. It's pretty close at 55. And the next two are probably two of the most important ones. On the Monaro Highway at Bibbinlook, which is just north of the Bombala River Bridge. There are logging trucks on that road. It's probably about 600 meters or so when you join the Monaro Highway up until the turn left. Please stay on the right-hand side of the road. Last year as well, the grass was quite long, so it made it hard to see traffic coming around the corner. And that bridge, there's not a lot of space for runners on that bridge. So please take care and cross exactly where the marshals tell you. That's probably one of the fastest speed zones through there. And then at 182K, when you come down the hill on Barry Way and hit Kosciuszko Road, the entrance to the path on the other side is about 100 meters up. So what will happen is you'll come down there, get to the roundabout, turn left. You'll see the officials. They will guide you across the road safely and onto the pathway that will take you around Lake Jindabyne. Now, Lake Jindabyne is still quite up, but not as up as much as it was last year from what we understand. So they're the key road crossings that race officials will support you at. And again, please give you the support to race officials. They're down there to really help. They're giving up their time. They enjoy the race. They get a lot out of it. But they also are there for the right reasons to help and not to cop any crap from anyone. Thank you, Mickey. And perhaps last, I should use that point. With our WhatsApp group, it's 8 crew chiefs are to use the Coast to Kosci WhatsApp group. If you have 2 crew chiefs, that's too bad. You just need to sort that out yourself about who will have the phone for that period of time. We have a number of different communication channels. We have one just for race officials. We have one just for crew chiefs. We're welcome to have a party line as well for everybody else, but it's very important that just the WhatsApp group that's set up for crew chief is used by crew chiefs. Thank you, Mickey. And we've had this in, I think, our first 2 years since when Coast to Kosci came back. We had 2 inclement weather finishes. So depending on the circumstances at the mountain, we may terminate the race either at any stage and prevent runners from summiting. If we do that, the finish line will be at Charlotte Pass. That may occur at any stage during the race, and that is dependent upon the weather conditions. We are guided very heavily by National Parks and Wildlife Service. We are on the phone to them before we make those sorts of decisions. We also have one of our race officials as well is actually a weatherman as well, and provides us very good advice as well. So if between the experts, they say it's not safe to go up, regardless of how sunny you think it is or what the conditions are, we don't go up and we terminate there. You do receive a race finish. It's classified as an inclement weather finish.
Left the best to last.
Yes, the tougher one. Now, should there be circumstances where it warrants penalties being implemented, and if this occurs, normally it's for unsafe behaviour. They will result in the runner serving a time penalty at Charlotte Pass, regardless of where that occurs. So if there's an issue and a big problem, let's say that occurs at Toowoomba for argument's sake, the time penalty will apply at Charlotte Pass. The determination of the severity of the incident, what that time penalty will be, is at the discretion of the race directors, and multiple time penalties can be applied, and there's simply no appeals. Again, this just gets back to safety at its core, guys. But we will apply time penalties if it warrants it, and we don't want to do that. So please do the right thing, and ensure your crews, most importantly, do the right thing.
So that's us, folks. I was just checking the chat there to see if there was any questions. The only question came in from Darren Rudd. Either everybody's on mute and they can't speak, or it's so clear you've got no questions whatsoever.
No, got one.
Comments or anything like that as well.
Got one though.
Fire away.
Earpieces, headphones.
Not
No.
allowed, Darren. In actual
Yeah,
fact, what we'll do is we'll actually just shout that out. There's no earpieces whatsoever. It's too much of a safety risk because you're on those roads.
What about the bone conducting ones that aren't in your ears?
All right, here we go.
We take that on notice. And
Yeah, let's take that on notice.
But the primary thing is to make sure, the primary driver for that is literally gets back to safety. And once you've been there, Darren, there's times you're out in the middle of nowhere, all right? You feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere around. And I've had that myself. It's a good example. There's about an 8K section between Bibb and Luke and Cathcart on Black Lake Road, I think it is, by memory. It's not uncommon to get logging trucks coming down there. You don't even see them. All of a sudden, they come over a dirt rise, and they're about 100 metres ahead of you going flat stick. Now, if one's coming behind you, or there's a vehicle coming at speed behind you, the chance to hear them is greatly reduced, and it just creates too much issue, too much risk. And that's
fair enough.
What you got to keep thinking of is less about yourself as a runner and what your needs are. You got to think about the needs of the locals, who they're not expecting to see runners coming through there. to be honest, most of them know the event's on and we come through, but a lot of other people traveling don't. And if they're on a narrow dirt road or a bitumen road and they're doing perhaps exceeding the speed limit because they don't expect any traffic around, they come around the corner and there's runners there, not on the verge, but out in the middle of the road. It just creates too much risk. And it's all about your safety, and we'd hate for somebody else to create an incident on the race.
So,
Fair enough.
Ramon, you said one earbud only, not too much of a risk as well. But look, my wife has just managed to procure some bone conducting earphones, and they look pretty good. So, as Greg says, we'll take that on notice, and those might be a goer. Zed, you've raised your hand.
Thanks, Mickey. Hey, when you drop your crew, when the crew drops you around at Cowbell Trail and we turn back to go to Cathcart via New Buildings, do we have hazards on and 40 k's an hour, or do we take the hazards off and go, safely at road speed?
So
Take them off. Sorry, you take the hazards off. Sorry, jump in, Mickey. Take the hazards off, but you go slow. All right. Once you've deposited your runner, you're then, in theory, as a support crew, deemed to be no longer on the race route. All right. However, we want you to drive it at 40k along back through New Buildings. If you remember, there's a trestle bridge. Cross the trestle bridge. Then observe the speed limit through the road. That Mount Darra Road, once you get onto it, is surprisingly windy and surprisingly narrow. As Mickey outlined earlier, your crews do get there ahead of you, regardless of how quick you think your runner's going to go over that distance. Crews get there before them. So when you do come back, once you've deposited a Cowbell Trail, the main concern is showering runners with rocks when you're driving back that are still yet to get to Cowbell Trail. 40 kilometres an hour, hazards on. Then once you're on that bitumen road, normal road rules apply, and we expect you to adhere to them. We don't want any incidents in the race.
Thanks, Greg.
Any more questions, comments, compliments, abuse?
Yes, Ms. Hayes.
Can I just ask, just in regards to asked if there was a timing point at Charlotte Pass, just going back to 2020 when the inclement finish was called and runners had gone through and there was no timing point there. Will there be a timing point at Charlotte Pass this year?
Yes.
There is
I know there's
Simone.
one at Perisher, but will there be an extra one at Charlotte?
There is
Yeah.
Simone. We introduced that last year, and there'll be one this year as well. So it's basically checkpoint 8 at Charlotte Pass.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Question with the trackers, I'm not really familiar with them. We see them being 3G. There's quite a few patches that are not very good reception. Does that sort of affect, I guess, the ability of the trackers to be able to send where the runners are at, or does it just send it when it gets to 3G again?
We tested 4G and 3G trackers.
No, they're 3G trackers.
Yeah, but we tested 4G and 3G, and actually the 3G ones were actually provided better or more consistent coverage. We are testing trackers again this weekend, and the 3G from a tracking perspective is fine. Different for standard mobile coverage, and you probably know more about that technically than I do, Mickey. But the 3G is fine for the tracker.
Thank you.
So Caitlin, if you lose reception, basically it picks it up more or less at the next point. And in our first test of it, there wasn't any more than say like 10 minutes of coverage or non-coverage. Sorry.
So when it gets the reception again, will it send through the data? Like just in terms of you talking about the tracker being used to disqualify people, that sort of thing. If there is no reception, does it show up as a blank section, or does it retain that information and send it through when it then has reception again?
Yeah, it retains the information.
Okay, yeah. Cool.
I have a good question, because when I was overseas at TDS, our tracker, I was missing for 11 hours.
Why?
I was out there running, but yeah, I didn't show up on the tracker for 11 hours, and then all of a sudden I appeared. So if that
want
was
to
to
say it
happen
again?
in the race. Just, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a,
Yeah.
I mean, we had really bad weather, so whether that was an issue and we were in the Alps, but yeah,
We'll
it
work
does
through
happen.
We'll work through it, Simone.
Learn about like hearing is that what you disqualified off if there's holes, like if the tracker, sorry, I'm sorry, I'm very well positioned. If the tracker stops working due to a technical difficulty, and so you've got a black hole or the 3G is not sending, like
Yeah. Well, look, Caitlin, we'll work through that.
yeah.
We've not used trackers previously in the race. We've runners have dialed in WhatsApp connections and gone for, at the appropriate checkpoint, have dialed in. We do have a number of officials out on the route. Mickey and myself have up and down the route like yo-yos. We're not doing that to spy on you. We're doing that to make sure everybody is being safe within the race and is actually enjoying the experience. If there are challenges here and there with the trackers, we will work through that progressively. The key move on a tracker is less about we don't trust you. The key reason on a tracker is just because we get such a strong degree of interest, from increasing degree of interest, people following and want to know where people are. And previously, when you're dialing in at a checkpoint and it's 40K to the next checkpoint, people want to know where you are, what you're doing, how you're going, as opposed to waiting for a few hours. So
I think it's definitely good, even just not for the runners, but for the crew, the amount of messages you get from people sitting at home wanting to know how everything's going.
yeah, so we'll
yeah.
work through that. And if there are instances, again, that might be a teething issue. We have taken trackers over the route and done a test, as we said, with 3G and 4G. And myself and Mickey have got another test to do with them as well, just to confirm a few points. But it's deemed as a enhancement to the race. Again, it's not a trust factor. It's not about that we don't trust you. We should be able to look at each other in the eye as trail runners and ultra runners, and be good for what we say we're good for.
There was a question in the chat from Lindsay asking how big the trackers are likely to be. They're like the size of a matchbox, Lindsay.
Right, sounds great, thanks.
Any more questions, comments, compliments, abuse? Thanks, Nikki. Thanks, Zed.
Nice hoodie, Adrian.
All right, we'll leave it there, guys. So we've recorded this session. We'll push up the presentation as well. And we'll hopefully see you next week for webinar 2. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers.